This is New Indie Central with Will.
Hello and welcome to the New Indie Central podcast. I'm your host Will. We've got a great show lined up today. My guest is, well, I'd say he's the king of concert TikTok. It's the one and only Gordon Smith. Huge thanks to Gordon for coming on the podcast, and if you enjoy it, don't forget to leave a follow because it means a lot. Hello Gordon, how are you?
I'm good. Well, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks. Thanks for coming on the podcast. It's great to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
So, if people don't know who you are, do you mind explaining a little bit about yourself?
So, I go to like a lot of concerts and on a lot of time on my own, sometimes with friends. But I always like go to the front, kind of have a patterned shirt, and for some reason, it's gone very viral on TikTok and all that. I can't really explain what's happening. And for me, I'm just a gig goer, but for some reason, there's been a bit of a problem with it.
You're more than a gig goer. I think you're like a gig celebrity. Like, if you're not at a gig, then you know it's going to be terrible.
Your words, not mine.
But yeah, so how did making TikToks start? Like, what inspired you?
All it was because it was at the time in 2022 when Howdy Nowdy Death Queue was trending.
Yeah.
And people making that. I was like, oh, wait, I've been on TV to this song. So I just kind of went, oh, you know what, why not? Let's just post this. This will be funny. I was like, oh, since I was on it to transmit, I just shared some of the other videos from it. And then it's, a few people liked it. Like, okay, then something kind of picked up and people kept like commenting saying, oh, they recognise me and stuff. I was like, that's weird. Didn't expect that. And then I was like, a day or so later, I was like, oh, I'll just do another video about like a compilation from gig videos and stuff that I've been in for the past like few years. And then suddenly that just kind of like took off. Everyone like saying, it's that guy. I was like, oh my God. So it just kind of started from there. And I was like, you know what? I always take videos at gigs anyway. I always go on like my Instagram story. So the only thing I was like, oh, you know what? The only thing you're doing differently is doing a little video at the start and a little video at the end. And then suddenly it's just kind of taking a life of its own, as I say.
Yeah. And so yeah, like I said, you're a gig celebrity. And I know like sometimes you get recognised at gigs as well. So like how does that feel like your own you're your own little celebrity?
It's a bit surreal at points, but I mean, there's always like a lot of people like even before TikTok, like you do always just tend to see the same faces and all that. But it's always just a bit weird when someone's like, "Oh my God, like I'm such a fan." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Like it's always nice to hear, but I'm just like, it's just always a bit just surreal to be hearing because I'm like, to me, I'm just kind of doing what I want to do. Like I'd be doing this anyway. So again, here, like I've got like some people saying this, or like they say, "I love watching my videos." I'm like, "Oh my God, that's really surreal to hear." Because I'm like, these are just things I'm like doing. But as I said, there's always like a lot of people I knew beforehand as well. So it was like it wasn't. So it was a bit of 50-50 of like people I already knew and like all these new people. But it has been great. I've really enjoyed every second of it.
And just looking at your TikTok right now, so you've got over 276,000 likes. Like. Isn't that crazy? Just seeing that every time you open TikTok.
That is crazy, but I do have to say a good chunk of it is pushed by something that's nothing to do with gigs. It's that Wallace and Gromit video I did about the brass band. For some reason, that's gone really well. But even then, that's still, as I said, like comes to quite a lot of likes, which is just all very surreal. It's just like, why are this many people liking this stuff?
Yeah. So, could you give a little background to the Wallace and Gromit TikTok? For people who don't know about it.
So all it was just like, I wanted to do like one of those, she plays Love Story. I'm going to shave my head and someone goes, oh no, you're at this gig and you're at this thing instead. Because I've seen a few that made me laugh and I was like, oh, you know what, this is a funny wee throwaway joke. So I just did it and I was like, but my dad didn't want to do it, so I just had to film it myself. And then I was like, I had to say, oh, this is Wallace and Gromit, the Wrong Trousers live brass band. And then kind of just showed some clips I took from that. Yeah. And for some reason that's gone like, it's got life of its own at this point, like 77,000 odd. I'm like, I don't really know how that's happened, but I'm not going to question it.
So as we're recording it right now, it's got 422.9 thousand views.
That's mad.
It's really went off, hasn't it?
Yes. I don't know why, but I'll take the win.
Yeah. And just looking at your TikTok right now, you've seen so many amazing artists like Hamish Hawk and Keen. And you've met some amazing people as well, like Declan McKenna and Lewis Capaldi. And I've got to ask, like, I've personally never met those two, but what is it like meeting these like such fantastic artists?
It's always great because the main thing I always sort of say, because like people talk about their disappointing encounters with celebrities, but I've never actually had one. Every single one I've had has been good. Because the way I sort of view it as it's on like gig days or dates of announced signing, so it's like days they've kind of publicly announced. So I feel like that's always a good way to go about it. Is just meet them on those days because they're always a bit more like happier to meet people because they're kind of expecting it. But it's always just been surreal because it's just realised, just ask some of them to be in videos and stuff, get a few photos and just chat away to them because like, a lot of these times like they do want to meet you as well, and it's very important to remember that because I know some people. I mean, I've been that as well. So when I first met Franz Ferdinand in 2018, I was like, shaking. I was like, oh my god, like what did I do? But then I kind of realised afterwards, like, no, these are things that they want to do. They want to meet you. They want to be chatting to you, and then they'll happily take photos. So it's just all a bit surreal, but it's all just like that's it. I just view it as all quite good fun.
Mm-hmm. And even some of the artists that you've met have been fans of you as well.
Yeah, I've had a few. It's mainly I just had some like odd like recognitions here and there. It's like I was like the most surreal one. The first one that kind of happened was like it was the Snuts when I met them in Glasgow at HMV in October 2022. I just kind of went up and said hey, and then Jack just looks at me and says, "You're that guy from TikTok." I was like, "Oh my god, what?" And I've had like a few bits here and there and stuff, but that was always like the most surreal one. Was just like meeting the Snuts right there and then him just saying that, like not even doubting it. He just said it. I was like, "Oh my god."
Mm-hmm. And talking about meeting artists, is there any artist that you would like to meet that you haven't done already?
Oh, that's the thing. Because like, I really have met pretty much everyone I'd want to meet. One of my other favorite artists that I've not met yet actually is Jack White. He is one. He's probably like the main one that I've not met that I would love to meet at some point, which hopefully could happen at someday, but it just depends when. And also, I was gutted I couldn't make the Johnny Marr signing, so I'd really love to meet Johnny Marr as well. So yeah, I'd say Jack White and Johnny Marr, I'd say would be the two main ones I'd love to meet still.
Mm-hmm. They're both legends, and in the last podcast, Swim School were saying that they're like a big on like manifestation. So I'm manifesting that you meet Jack White.
Well, maybe one day, hopefully.
Yeah. Let's get to some fan questions now. So
Yeah.
If people aren't already following our Instagram at New Indie Central Podcast, I put on the story asking if anyone would like to ask some questions for Gordon. So, this is from my friend Nicole. What is the worst gig that you've been to?
See, I've been anticipating I was going to ask something like this. So, there's two I kind of go between, but there's one I'm like edging off now because I'm like, I have more. There's like, just realised some other issues and stuff. So I'm like putting that to one side. I'm going to have to say this, which is kind of weird because given what I just talked about. So it would have to be in 2014 when I saw. Oh, I do love this guy, and as I said, I've literally just talked about him. It's when I saw Jack White in the Hydro. So to clarify, I've seen Jack White 6 times. Every other gig's been fantastic. Like I've seen him twice in the Usher Hall, seen him twice in like the Apollo in London, and I saw him at a festival with the Raconteurs, and they were all like absolutely fantastic, the right venues and stuff. But the Hydro one, it was just like the atmosphere just wasn't right. It just felt like he didn't make the show for an arena, and kind of felt a bit disinterested. And I thought maybe it was just me because where I was sitting. But I spoke to one of my friends who's like a big Jack White fan. He knows a lot of people, and he said I wasn't the only one that was disappointed with that gig. But that would be, I'd say that was my most disappointing one. I still had fun with some of the songs, and I say he is one of my all-time favourites. But I was just saying, just that gig wasn't right. But I'm not gonna like knock at Jack White because I do love him, and I've seen him multiple times since that gig, and all those other gigs have been fantastic. But I would have said that 2014 gig at the Hydro with Jack White would probably be my least favourite gig.
Mm-hmm. So was it just like one of the gigs where it just feels off with the artist?
Yeah, it just felt off. The atmosphere wasn't really there, and also because like it was in an arena, but there was also like no screens or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of the only things I oddly remember is like during one of the songs, my brother, we both remember exactly the song as well. It was like there's like this big spotlight just kind of kept coming into our faces and blinding us. But it's just kind of like he wasn't very talkative. He didn't seem that thrilled. But then when I saw him in 2018, I saw him twice that year, London, the Apollo, and then he played the Usher Hall, which was like his last European show. And that was like, that just blew everything out the water. Like that was the venue that's made for him, and like his energy. He even gave us like an extra long show. So it's all been fantastic since, but it's just that one show just wasn't right.
And that was your worst. What is the best gig that you've been to?
The best. Well, I always have to say some strong contenders like David Byrne. When I saw him in 2018 near Roy Concert, because that was like a very cool show. But the best one will be because it's got to be Paul McCartney at the Cavern Club. Because
Wow.
I mean, it's just something that you just can't make up being there, and it's like something I always saw as a kid. People going to like these shows, seeing his audience, being like, "Oh my god, imagine being one of the audience members. How on earth do you even do that?" To then suddenly become that person, and then actually see your favorite artist in their hometown in a club of 200 people. You can't beat that for free as well.
Wow. So, could you give a little background to the Cavern Club gig? So, how did you find out about it, and how were you like, right, I need to go see this?
So it was all about right place, right time, because I was visiting my brother in Manchester that weekend. So the gig was the Thursday. I arrived in Manchester on Wednesday. My brother was working, so I just kind of like sat in the Costa actually, and I was like reading through. I'm on Paul McCartney Facebook groups, and like, oh, Paul McCartney announced there's a secret gig somewhere in Liverpool. So I kind of just looked into it. I was like, oh, do I end up over? It's only an hour away. Wasn't too sure. One of my friends went, you might as well just give it a shot. And other McCartney fans as well said, just give it a shot, because I'm in these Facebook groups. So I just kind of nipped over just on the off chance I got in. And then suddenly I queued at the Cavern Club, but then you had to get your tickets from the Echo Arena. So you had to sprint across, and then suddenly just found myself with a ticket. It was mental.
Wow.
Felt like a day I'd kind of jumped into like a parallel universe is the way I describe it. Because normally it's like in school I was known for for being obsessed with Paul McCartney. And then suddenly I'm in this parallel universe when I've got press asking questions, people asking me questions and stuff. I'm like, hang on, wait, is everyone here actually interested now? So it felt like, that's the best way to describe it. It felt like I just kind of jumped into a parallel universe that day when everyone's actually interested in me being a Paul McCartney fan.
Yeah, I have to admit, I'm really jealous, because that's like a once in a lifetime opportunity to see Paul McCartney in the Cavern Club.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's just, sorry.
go on.
Yeah, it's just all like, just because I always wanted to see him in Liverpool, but I never quite was able to make it quite work.
Mhm.
But I think like it was just sort of, I don't want to say fate, but it's sort of like the way they sort of made it so it would be that would be the first time seeing him in Liverpool at that gig, at that place.
Yeah, and a fun fact for anyone who's listening, I only found this out like a few weeks ago, but the Cavern Club isn't in its original place when the Beatles played it back in the 50s, 60s?
Late 50s, early
Late
60s,
50s.
yeah. Yeah. It's just one of those, like, it is and it isn't. Like, it's as close as it's going to get. But there's a good chunk of the ground that's covered and everything. Like, it's not quite, it isn't the original one, but, there's a lot of bricks not used. I mean, the Cavern Club, they do have their own thing on their site sort of explaining it
Mhm.
and everything. But they say, like, a good lot of the ground is covered, but, like, the way you stand looking on a stage is not the way it was.
Yeah. Another question, this is from Morgan. Who are your top picks for who we should be listening to? Which is quite an interesting question.
Oh, that's always yeah. Who we should be listening to? Like sort of like up and coming artists, or just like I don't know. I always say like Dylan's always fantastic. She's always good to listen to, and she's great to watch live. I always find it weird just to say who, because I've always just been like kind of like let people just kind of go and enjoy what they want to listen to. I've never really been. Oh, Morgan has asked a good question.
Mm-hmm.
Let me check my Spotify to kind of see, because no. Because then, there's always like the bands you should listen to. I mean, Hamish Hawk, there's one. There's one I do like. So yeah, like Hamish Hawk is one I really think everyone should listen to. Like I know a lot of people think I'll be biased because, like I knew him from back in the day and everything. But he is fantastic. And it's like, I always sort of say, because my brother was like that with me. He didn't trust me about like how good Hamish Hawk is. Because like, I'm just saying I know him and everything. But no, he's fantastic. And I think everyone should listen to him and just like see him live. So it's like, yeah. I always say like Hamish Hawk and Dylan. I'd say if we're gonna go like for new artists and everything, I'll say them too.
Okay. Another question. Well, what are your tips for getting to the front at a big festival? Like, first of all, getting there and surviving through the day.
Yeah. So the main thing is, with festivals, it's always different getting barriers. Like it's not hard to get Barry out at festival. It's easy. I don't need to go. I've gone early, but I've never actually needed to go that early. The main thing is just kind of like eat decently before you go in.
Yeah.
And when those cups of water come around, just take them. But the main thing is you need, I'd say, like, you need all that, but you really need an artist on that stage that you really, really want to see.
Yeah.
That's what kind of carries you, because I didn't quite realise that, because I did like a day here and there, but mind, Transfer 2021, so I saw Biffy the day before, then on the day of Friday, I kind of went up to Sam Fender, but I was like, I'm getting tired. Didn't mind Coordinators, but I wasn't really fussed. I was like, I want to see Keen and all that tomorrow, so I just kind of went off. I went to sleep, and then I was like, okay, Saturday, I'll be at the front, and then I'll make sure I see Keen. And then, like, even before that, I was like, oh, I might just go after Keen because I'm getting quite tired. But then after Twin Atlantic and Keen back to back, I found like the energy just comes back.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my main tip. It's like you really need someone that you really want to see, that you're like dying to see and like you love seeing. Then that kind of like carries you through. And then like after you've seen them, like it will kind of put your energy up as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, eat decently, stay hydrated, and yeah, main thing is don't just go to the front because you want to, you kind of want to see over your front. I always say you need someone that you really, really want to see, and even if it's just one artist, that will be enough to carry you through the entire day.
Yeah. I remember being at the front for Transmit last year on the Saturday, and it was Sam Fender headlining, and
Yeah.
I missed so many opportunities to see Sam, so I was like, right, I'm going to try to stay at the barrier all day because there's a few artists that I want to see on the main stage that day, and it was really good, but it was just like try to survive through it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I always find like I always kind of do okay, but it's the moment I get back, the moment I sit down,
Yeah.
I kind of then I like when I did like just the days, so like in 2018 and 2019 at Transmit, I just did one day of each. I just mind getting the train back to Edinburgh, like the day when I stayed in Edinburgh, I just mind sitting. The moment I sat down on the train, I was like, oh my god, okay, yeah, I've been standing for well over 10 hours now.
But it's also quite impressive, like saying, "Oh, I've stood for 10 hours and felt fine."
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, that's my main thing. I sort of say it's just, yeah. Main thing is have someone that you really, really want to see. Then that can like carries you through, and everything. That's the main thing I say.
And one last one. It's not really a question, but it says, "Tell him his good gig buddy Sam says hi." So
All right, there, Sam.
do with that information as you will.
Indeed, indeed.
So thank you very much for coming on the podcast. It's much appreciated.
Well, that's all right. That's all right. Thanks for having me.
And finally, one last question. So what is the next gig you're gonna?
Oh, so the next gig I've got is Weezer and the Smashing Pumpkins on Wednesday.
Wow. So thank you very much for coming on. It's been great.
Well, thank you very much, Will.
And once again, a huge thanks to Gordon for coming on the podcast. And if you enjoyed, please give us a follow so you don't miss whenever a new episode comes out. You can give us a follow on Instagram as well at New Indie Central Pod. And while you're there, you can follow Gordon as well. Thank you very much for listening. I'll see you next time.